Hello and welcome to Becoming Canada. My name is Dr. Joan. You may have watched an earlier video where I talked about forgiveness, and I used my own childhood and teenage experiences to give you some examples of the way that we move through that process. Today I'm going to use another example from my own life to move you through the self-forgiveness process. And I'm also going to talk to you about why self-forgiveness is actually the most important part of the process when we forgive. So I'd like to take you on a journey with me. I'm 21, 22, 23 years old. I'm a university student, downtown Toronto, and I'm making my way back to the suburbs, and I have to catch a train. And I make it through the doors just in time. The doors close. And now I'm squished amongst a whole bunch of people. I can't go in any further. I'm just kind of stuck at the door. Now here's the thing that happens. I'm stuck in the door, and people are now getting off the train, and I'm trying to, go to the side whenever somebody's going this direction or that direction. And after a while, I'm feeling very uncomfortable because how long is this going to last? I'm like stuck right in the middle of the door, and people have to constantly be moving by me. This continues for about 3 stops or so. And at one point, there's this guy that needs to get off the train. Still remember what he looks like. He's got red hair, freckles, he's a white guy, medium built, not much taller than I am. But as he's getting off the train, he does this. Get out of the door! Well, his hands weren't like this. And he was totally just angry. And I remember being stunned in that moment. And then he got off the train and the door closed. And it's one of those moments where spiritually, like mentally, something out of body happens. And you get off the train and you start beating up the guy. It's like one of those moments for me. But I'm still stuck in the door. And I'm sure I turned beet red. And I'm sure I want to fall through the ground. It's like one of those moments, right? Because you're stuck with the other people on the train now. And I remember following this guy with my eyes, and he felt it. Because he looked back about 3 times, but I followed him with my eyes, and there must have been complete and utter hatred. He felt my energy. When we forgive, we're asking 4 questions. The first question is, what did you want from that person that they weren't able to give you? And it's not that they didn't want to, it's just that they weren't capable, they weren't able, they weren't ready to give it to you. So you answer that question. You move on to the next question, which is, what did they give you instead of what you wanted? The third question is, how did you feel about that? And then finally, you're answering the question, what do you know about this individual that caused them to give you what they gave you instead of what you wanted? So in this train situation, I'm at the door. I'm obviously stuck. At some point, I'm so uncomfortable. I'm not even looking behind me. I'm not even aware that there might be space for me to move back anymore. I'm just wanting this ride to be over, and for some reason, I'm just stuck in the door. But this gentleman who's passing by me, perhaps he has a different perspective. But anyways, from whatever perspective he's coming, he's annoyed. And the result is he yells at me. But not only that, he plans his yelling in such a way that he then gets to escape. And I'm stuck there, still in front of the door, enraged, angered, and completely embarrassed. We've all had those moments. So what do I want from this guy? A little bit of patience and kindness, a little bit of understanding, an understanding of how uncomfortable I might be feeling actually stuck in the door. And what do I get instead? Well, I get blasted. And not only do I get blasted, I get it in such a malicious and planned type of way. And so even because he looked back and all of those things, I can see whether he's terrified or just sensing my feelings or he's feeling badly, he's looking back because he knows something has gone wrong. right? And we all do that. We look back when we have done something wrong to another person. The feelings I've already explored with you. I'm embarrassed in that moment. But shortly after the embarrassment and feeling like I want to go through the floor comes rage and anger. So as we're moving through the forgiveness process, we're also thinking then about what is it about their life story that would actually impact and influence them in such a way that this is what they would give to another person who's stuck in a door. And so as we begin to think about that, we have to think about, okay, what was happening from his perspective? You know, obviously there was an irritation, and, you know, obviously he could get around me, but he felt because I was in his way, he had to say something. Because I don't know this guy, and I don't know the inner workings of his life, what I can say is that he has a very short fuse and has himself experienced this. And this is how we learn through the self-forgiveness process. Once we answer all of those questions, we begin with some statements. I forgive you, red-haired guy with freckles that I don't know, for yelling at me in such a malicious way, and then exiting so quickly before I could even respond, instead of understanding that I was stuck. I didn't feel there was any place for me to go, and the only thing I could do was move out of people's way at that moment. But it wasn't something that was available to me. I was stuck in the door. How did I feel? I felt angry. I felt discontented. I felt embarrassed. I felt contempt. Now, the thing that all of us must be aware of is that in these moments, something happens. There is something called mirror neurons. As we look at other people's behavior, especially in a moment where we are harmed, these mirror neurons fire. And what they do is they basically record the behavior of the other person. They record the intent of the other person in the sense of our understanding what their intentions is, but they also record our experience. So as they fire, there is this memory that's created. And in those moments when we are harmed, these mirror neurons actually create a pathway for us to now mirror the other person, because their behavior is now imprinted on us. And until we do a self-forgiveness, we won't be able to break that pattern. We'll simply mirror them. What I can say about this gentleman is that he's mirroring a behavior that has been shown to him. And more than likely, that behavior occurred when he was harmed in some way. As a human race, we're all mirroring the people who caused us pain. And it is only when we do a self-forgiveness that we actually release ourselves from the pattern, whether intentional or unintentional, that has now been created in our lives. So I'm forgiving him, and now I'm beginning to remember all the times when I have been tempted or have actually said to someone, I may not have yelled, but I might have actually said to someone out loud, get out of the door, right? Or get out of the car, or get out of my way. And as I begin to think about him and why he acted that way, now I begin to see also the ways in which I have mirrored his behavior. And in fact, I can think of one particular circumstance where I sat down with my professor, who was my thesis advisor, and I was feeling like the whole process was going so slow. And I remember saying to her, you need to get out of my way because I need to get out of this school. So these are the ways in which we repeat the pattern. Now that I look at myself speaking that way to her, I feel totally like I was being disrespectful. So as we repeat the pattern, we're not even aware of it because those neurons have fired and it's imprinted and it's unconscious. So as we move through the forgiveness process, these are the realizations that we come to. The next part of the journey is about letting go. Guy with red hair and freckles who yelled at me, I let go of the anger I let go of the contempt. I let go of the embarrassment. I let go of the conflict. I let it all go towards you for yelling at me in such a malicious way. I love you. And we all have to say, I love you, because we're humans. We're a human race. And right now, we're so tempted to always categorize one another. But at the end of the day, we're on a spiritual journey, and we're all spirits. And as spirits, there's no color to us. There's no race to us. There's no ethnicity. All we are children of God. And for us to actually act as children of God, we begin to love one another from a humanitarian perspective. We begin to change from this place where we're thinking always about us to now thinking about the world and how everyone is operating. This is how we change things. So I love you, guy with red hair and freckles who yelled at me, and I let go. And the other thing is, I now move on without repeating the pain that you have inflicted upon me. I move on because if I don't repeat your pattern, it means I'm a healthy person. I'm a loving person. I'm a happy person. And that's where I want to be. But the final part of this really is about saying who we want to be like. And the ultimate person that every human should want to be like is Christ. A gentle, humble, kind, sacrificial person who would go right to the end for us, who would give up his own life, who would say, I bear this cross for all humanity. This is who I am. I choose to be like Christ. I choose to rise from this circumstance. I choose to rise above it. I choose to live with the humility and the love and the grace of Jesus Christ. So as we move through the end of that and we're forgiving the other person, we're really looking at them and speaking out this forgiveness out loud. What we do is we look in a mirror, and the mirror reflects back to us our own image, but we're also visualizing at the same time what that person did to us, and that we're reintegrated into the scene that was a part of it. But now we turn and we say the same forgiveness statements to ourselves. No, they do not differ. We say the same forgiveness to ourselves. We say, Joan, I forgive you for yelling at me so maliciously and then escaping. So here's how we yell at each other and how we yell at ourselves. When a person does something like that, we step into their shoe. We begin to embody them, and it's almost like we're yelling back at ourselves. But the reason why that works is because now we actually believe what they had to say, and rather than having compassion for ourselves, we say things like, why did you stand in that door? You know, we don't understand that the circumstance at the time, there was nothing else that we could do. Right? And so we begin a yelling process at ourselves. We believe the message that they have just sent us about how bad we are, and then we begin to play it out. So, Joan, I forgive you for yelling at me, instead of understanding that I was stuck in the door and that I had nowhere to go. And instead of approaching me with care, you yelled at me with such contempt and malicious intent. I felt, and it's the exact same feelings, because the analogy I like to use with my clients is this: we're all cups, and what people pour into us is what we then pour out to others, right? So there's this pattern that is constantly at play amongst all humanity, and the only way that we create peace is when we have peace within. And the only way peace within comes is when we stop the pattern that other people have given us. And the only way we stop the pattern is to see it in the moment and now infuse something else: compassionate understanding and empathy for where people are, for the people that they're becoming but are not quite there yet. And with empathy, we begin to say, I understand, like if you could do better, you would have. I understand that in that moment, I wanted something different from you, but you couldn't give it because you weren't ready, you weren't capable, and you weren't able. So I let it go. And we say the same thing to ourselves. Joan, I know if you could have done better, you would have. But you're still on a journey. And right here, as you're forgiving, you're learning something new about yourself and all humanity. And with this knowledge, you now are empowered to change everything. This is how we change ourselves. When we notice the pattern, we finally say, stop it. And it's not that it stops right away. What happens is we begin to practice. And it might be that we fall the next time, we repeat the pattern, but we go back and we forgive the other person, we forgive ourselves. And the next time we make yet again another promise to do it better. And by the third time, we just don't do it anymore. This is how we change. And this is why the self-forgiveness process is so important. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Share the video with a friend. Help us create a movement of peace. Peace within and peace out. Have a wonderful day.